Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away. Move to the groove and the light that flickers. We get lost in the crowd, it's getting thicker. We get away from the drinks and chatter. Haven't said a word, but it doesn't matter. Feel the air get thinner. I'm standing in a blurry dream. No one else can see us. Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away. Thinner. I'm standing in a blurry dream. No one else can see us. So let us dance this night away.
Good evening and welcome to Be More Super Live, streaming live on X, Facebook and YouTube. And we're joined by a guest I've been trying to get for quite a while. It's Thomas Elms. Thomas, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here finally.
Yes, playing that SKYMED bingo. And we were just saying before we went live that we got a bit of a showcase of your cats, which I've got to say, if anyone follows you on Instagram, they will definitely see you're a cat man. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think cats are great. I've got a cup. I showed Aaron last week. I've got a cat dad cup that my girls got me, but no, that's great. But we're here to talk about SKYMED as well as a few other things, so congratulations on season 3. I've got to say, what a way to make an entrance on season 3. How dare you make an entrance like that? The viewers will have to watch it to understand what we're talking about, because literally I think you need to go and see a doctor, because you have got too many bumps in certain places that I don't recognize. I don't know. I mean, it could be normal, but not for me. But what a way to get into season 3. But let's rewind and talk about how you got into SKYMED to begin with. So what was it about the role that attracted you to this show?
Well, that's such a great question to start this interview off, because that's such a long time ago for me. That was almost 4 years ago. And it was just at the end of the pandemic here in Canada. It was coming out of probably the worst 11 months of my life, like mental health wise, relationships, career. Everyone was kind of going through it. We were all eating the proverbial shit sandwich, as they say. And I really found a love and an obsession for like combat sports, particularly Thai boxing. It was something just about the fighting culture that really, it became like my peace for about 4 hours a day when I would just train like in my parents' garage on the concrete. It was just, not like it was a good time, and I could just kind of develop, I don't know, just a sense of inner peace, I guess. And fitness is always good, and having a martial art that sort of kind of inspires you. And it's such a brutal sport, Thai boxing. Like, it's such an incredible like feat of athleticism, where you've got these two like individuals just splitting each other open. And at the highest level, it's just such actually like a beautiful, form of fighting. So there's a lot of things that kind of inspired me about that, but mainly it was just like I think the physical discipline of doing something every single day. And cut to about like 8 or 9 months later, we're just coming out of the pandemic and the acting world is starting to bloom again. Coincidentally, I actually feel at the time like I was in the best shape of my life, physically, mentally, coming out of that sort of low period. That was really when those two opportunities came up. It was one you mentioned earlier, which is Boys in the Boat, which was, definitely one of the coolest films I've ever gotten to work on. And SkyMed is definitely one of the best TV shows I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of, and they were both really ensemble projects where I kind of got to really grow, like not just as a character, but as a human being alongside an ensemble of people. And that was an incredibly special like experience. It was a once in a lifetime experience in both occasions. But I think the point of this is, and going back to your earlier question, was I booked both of those jobs. Those auditions came in the span of maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. And it was just when things were starting to get really busy again in Vancouver. There was tons of auditions, tons of work coming in because the pandemic had kind of cleared up and things were opening up again. And I just happened to be in a really solid place in terms of myself. And I think all that stuff really just translated into my camera acting. It was like it's kind of come to change my whole outlook on acting as a skill. I thought for a long time going through university, and then you get out of university, try and start working in TV and film. There's all these different things you have to learn, and it's all quite nebulous and abstract. And I found that part about secondary education and university acting quite confusing for me. And it was only really until I forgot about acting for like a good year because of COVID and everything was shut down. And I just sort of fell in love with combat sports and Thai boxing and kickboxing. And that really kind of allowed me to see acting in a different light, because as soon as I stepped on camera again, after like 8 months of not really practicing acting the way that I would, like going to class and studying and doing all this, academic, I guess, stuff. What I was taught and what I thought, was the most effective way. Really just like physically training my body actually helped me unlock. And also, there's something very emotional about getting beaten up in the gym. Like anyone who's ever really, been beaten up or does jujitsu, and, you're getting choked out by a guy like 30, 20 kilos lighter than you. It's an emotional experience. Fighting really unlocked, I guess, like a deeper part of my, emotional depth, and it helped me grow as a human being. And all those things, like the mental, the emotional, and I think just the physical, those I think to me are like the trifecta of acting now. And, it was really just through like a lot of like repeated physical training, doing kickboxing, shadow boxing every day, bag work, heavy bag work, skipping, all this stuff like really help build your emotion, builds your body, builds your confidence, and builds your presence on stage and in the ring, when you're doing kickboxing drills, but also coincidentally in an audition room when you're having to tape yourself and just stand there, hold your ground, hold space, all these things you actually develop doing like serious like martial arts training. And so I had inadvertently kind of like hardened myself into like this, what I felt was like a knife's edge, where I could just stand and deliver, in an acting audition setting. And I remember doing the SkyMed one, and I remember doing the Boys in the Boat one, and just sort of leaving with a feeling of like, wow, like I really brought more of myself to that audition than I think I ever had before as an actor and as a person. So that was really like a huge eureka moment for me. So that's such a long rant, but you kind of like, I hadn't thought of that quite.
No, I've literally taken all that in, and it'll lend to my next question, because I've got a feeling that when you got the role as Nowak in SkyMed and he's a pilot, I'm guessing you did a lot of research. I'm guessing that you're the type of person that you want to do the best job possible and come across as the most authentic as you can be on screen. So what sort of thing did you have to go through to sort of get your mindset into the character of Nowak?
That's a really good question because my understanding of who that character was kind of evolved. You know, there's like the initial, and it's a weird thing because like the audition that you do never really ends up being similar to the job that you land, if that makes any sense at all,
Yeah.
because you really have very little information about what the creators are looking for. And that's sort of the mystery of the whole thing. You kind of need to sort of try and tap into their imagination, or just sort of take a risk and use your own imagination. I think that's what I did in that particular setting. Like, I thought it would, you know, obviously there's the sexuality of the character. Like, I'm a straight man. It's a gay character. But I think for me, it was about not getting hung up on, you know, how different I am from this guy, when really, you know, I walking in there with my giant like Tim Hortons, which is like this, you know, one of the, you know, if you're Canadian, you know, Tim Hortons coffee, right? It's like our Dunkin'
We've
Donuts.
got Tim Hortons here. Literally, I buy Tim Hortons all the time. Literally, normally on this show, I've got my big Tim Hortons mug, but I haven't got it tonight. So
That's like counter colonialism or something. I don't know what's going on there. We're planting the flag back in the motherland or something. But that's amazing. So I remember actually just bringing in my Tim Hortons coffee cup into that room where we taped, and there was just such a like relaxed sort of, you know, it was just sort of me and my friend, you know, who I clearly loved, and that person ended up being Mercedes, who played Lexi on this show. We're best friends throughout the whole series, and it was just me and her. But it was just me talking with my coffee cup in the seat of you know, in the driver's seat. And then I go, you know, well, look, kid, this job is about, you know, long hours and low pay, so get used to it. And just that kind of relaxed, experienced, tired. I don't know. It was a really visceral character, and it was a character that I physically felt. And I think that was probably why I got the audition. I sort of just stepped into that room in front of the camera and just assumed that role. Really, I can't really explain it any other way. It was really similar to the Boys in the Boat thing, and I think it's due to the fact that I was just in such a physical acting mindset. Normally, I think I would be trying to like reinvent the wheel and, you know, do all this like cerebral trying to like, you know, I guess like, you know, a lot of homework and a lot of prep you mentioned. And I think that stuff is really important once you specifically know like what it is you want to learn. But for an audition, it can just be so open-ended as to what they're looking for in terms of the character. And a lot of it too is like what you look like. So it's important to remember that too. Like, it's really, you know, you could be the most prepared guy in the world, but, you know, if, you know, there's a little thing that someone else does, you know, and sometimes these are just sort of natural quirks that are happening to us when we are concentrated and focused, but also relaxed. And that kind of brings me back to this whole idea of like the trifecta of acting. And I'll say it again, like, I think fighting really helps build that structure and that foundation where you develop concentration, which you need, imagination, which I think comes from like all the, you know, the shadow boxing, visualizing an opponent, you know, and which is what happens as you develop your skills. You go from like novice to, you know, intermediate to advanced, and pretty soon, like, before you know it, you've actually developed, you know, focus, concentration, you know, imagination, and also relaxation. Because one of the things you learn too is that if you're too focused on your plan, you know, and someone hits you in the nose and things go all fuzzy for a minute, that plan just goes straight out the window. And you have to be able to take those moments where you lose control, you know, and your emotions start to rise up, and you need to be able to just sort of relax and breathe through that. Because if you don't, you're going to lose the fight. You know, emotions don't win a fight. It's, you know, it's like stoicism. It's relaxed. And so in a way, like, I was so relaxed in those audition rooms. I think I was just, you know, displaying so much of my natural physicality, you know, my sort of little Thomas quirks that I think normally I'd be too scared to reveal in an acting setting. I'd be too focused on like, okay, I got to become this other guy. I got to become this other guy. He's gay. He's Polish. He's a, you know, he's a flight guy in northern Manitoba. He probably doesn't have much money. You know, you sort of, rather than trying to think like, how am I different from this guy, and what do I need to assume or, you know, disguise myself as or transform? It's really just like, no, like, he's tired. He works long hours, low pay, but he's got this person that he clearly cares about right next to him in the seat. And it's just about talking to that person. And it was very much the same in the Boys in the Boat audition. I remember the three scenes we got were when I've been kicked off the team and I'm talking to the coach about, listen, like, this is all I have in the world. And he realizes that, and there's that moment of reconciliation between him and like the father figure that he really never had. It's such a beautiful scene. Then there's the moment where he first meets Hadley's character, so the love of his life, and he's just like reading a book under a tree or something, and she walks up to him and she's like, "Hey, I know you." And it's just that sort of just like, it's like immediately falling in love. And it's that sort of old time classic love story that I think is what's so beautiful about that movie, and also what you don't really see too much in like modern, like they just fall so effortlessly like in love with each other, and there's like there's no fight, there's no drama. The drama play them like learning and growing and trusting each other, but there's that initial just like spark, and that's boom, it just sets off the entire movie, and it's just such a beautiful old school love story. What was the third? I don't know. I can't quite remember.
But that's the beautiful thing about relationships back in the days of the 30s. Do you know what I mean? It was a time when people fell in love through letters, and you won't get that now. Literally, it's all gone to pot. But going back to obviously when you got the role of Nowak, I mean, how important is it for you as an actor when you get the role to actually then find out what your character is about and how multi-layered that character is, because the writing on this show is superb. I mean, Nowak, for instance, has got so many things that is going on, behind the eyes, that we don't see yet, but we have seen in the last few seasons. So how exciting was it for you to read that first script and actually think, do you know what? This is a great character.
It was cool, and specifically, I guess season 3 was really exciting and rewarding for me as a person and as an actor, because I think the stakes were so high, and there's so much emotion in this season. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of love. You get to see these characters grow up after 3 seasons, and make some pretty major life decisions, and so I felt really like, well, hey, I've kind of played this guy for 2 seasons that's kind of like I always imagined him as kind of like, I don't know, he just never really wants to come and sit down at the fire with the rest of the gang. You know what I mean? He's sort of a loner. Like you said, he's got a lot of layers to him, I suppose. And it was cool to kind of give myself the permission to be as big emotionally as I felt I could and I wanted to, rather than worrying about like, how much do I need to hold back? And there's a thing about TV acting, I guess, that's different than other mediums, where you sort of need to play like the marathon instead of the sprint, where like you're tracking this guy's growth over like, 9 episodes and then another 9 episodes. And so unless you're like the guest star and you get to make that huge splash in the pool when you come out, and it's all your big, every scene is your moment to really, drop the microphone or whatever you want. Nowak is such a more stoic and reserved character, but this year or last year, I suppose, I really just gave myself permission to just go full tilt with everything, just full send every single scene. So if I was angry, I allowed myself to be truly angry. If I was sad, I allowed myself to cry. And it really sort of felt like what everyone else was doing. There was kind of this infectiousness to season 3 in SKYMED where, it sort of felt like stories were sort of coming to an end, and that was both terrifying and also exciting for everyone. And it felt like there was nothing left to do but try and leave it all on the floor. And so that's what I felt like I tried to do, and it's probably some of the proudest I've ever been acting on television. So thanks so much for saying that, because I really did feel like I was able to, through the writing on the show, like do some stuff that normally I would probably, I guess I'm a harsh critic of myself, I suppose you could say. Like I see a lot of my earlier work and I think like, oh my God, what an amateur, like, holy cow. Like, and then it was really different, I guess, for the first time to watch myself. And I think this happened in season 2 SKYMED and Boys in the Boat, and maybe halfway through season 1 SKYMED, but I guess it's just my evolution as an actor. And it's in credit, I think, a lot to the SKYMED writing team and the way they really got to know us as people. And there's this beautiful relationship between actors and writers on TV after a while, where there's just so much trust. Like I'm sort of excited to discover what they're writing for me, and they're sort of excited to discover like how I'm going to lift this off the page. and it was really cool just to kind of get to know these people over 3 seasons, and just the sort of familiarity and trust that I had, where I could just sort of look at them, and maybe normally I would have this inner voice being like, "Oh, that was probably shit. That was probably shit," you know. And I could just look over to the writer, and if she was just giving me one of these, like, I'd be okay. And I reached the point where I was even able to sort of try something new on every take. As long as you respect the writing, you respect what's happening in the scene. You don't piss off the continuity supervisor who's in charge of which hand you use to pick up what pen and what touch the yoke at what time. As long as you're keeping everyone happy, I think it's interesting to try and do every scene a little bit differently. It's just something like Serene McKellen said a long time ago when I was like in university and I was just studying the greats. I wanted to be them so bad. I wanted to unlock the mysteries. I thought, like, if I just watched every single thing he ever said and absorb everything he ever did, maybe that would. And now more than ever, it's starting to make more sense. So I think it's just that I had to grow as a person, and maybe as an actor, as an artist, in order to decipher that.
I mean, it must be such a magical experience to see these words on page and then be created on screen for the first time. I just think it must be magical to be on set to actually see that happen. But let's talk about sparring, because you mentioned it quite in detail at the beginning. And I suppose acting is like sparring, because you've got people that you're acting opposite, and they have got to bring the A game to make you perform better. You know what I mean? Is there an actor in this cast that literally has really, excelled you in your performance, really pushed you to be, the greatest you can be?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's this is going to sound so diplomatic, but it's everyone. It's every single one of those cast. I can think of a time in the past 3 seasons of filming, particularly season 3, because it was such an emotionally charged episode. You've got, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's grief. There's, big dreams, big risk taking, a lot of hurt, like some, a lot of forgiveness and redemption. It's probably the most, it's an intense show, but to say it's the most intense is a bit,
But the thing is,
we're comparing.
It is intense, but then it comes with a lot of laughs. It comes with, it's like being on like an emotional roller coaster, which is great, because as soon as they've got you laughing, they're hitting you in the gut straight away. And Novak's been through a lot. Have you got a favorite scene that you've shot?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them. There's one in season 3 that I want to talk about, but it hasn't aired on Paramount yet. So, I don't even know if it's out on CBC yet. So I can't spoil it too much. But basically, we're all in the plane, so there's nothing spoiled there. And it was just one of these things where our director really kind of put us in I don't know. He put us in the gauntlet, I suppose you could say. He basically just didn't let us get off the Ferris wheel until he was happy. And so we would run through a super, super long take of this incredibly emotional moment on the plane where, you just go, 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 go. And again, I bring this back to like a good foundation of like relaxation and concentration. You have to be able to just concentrate on what you're actually saying after you've said it 11 times, and you kind of you have to rely on your imagination to keep it fresh, and you have to relax enough to be able to do something different, hopefully, and discover something different each time. And I just remember it was probably our like 6th or 7th go at this thing, and I just realized, holy cow, like I'm crying. I look over, Mercedes is crying. I look back into the back, Natasha's crying. Carlos is crying. He was the guest star for the day. Everyone's freaking crying. And we were just feeding. I look over, my director's freaking crying in the monitor. It's just, I felt like we'd sort of like struck lightning in that moment for those, 3 or 4 hours where we were in this like just cramped, hot, like, we have an interior model of the plane basically that we all sit in that's on like a pneumatic support so the plane can tilt and all this stuff. It's like maybe about 15% larger than what the interior of a real King Air would be. And we do a lot of the, we don't film anything in the air. Obviously it's all in studio with green screen and stuff like that and hydraulics. But it was just, we were like in the pressure cooker for like 4 hours. So that was one of the moments where every single actor in that scene helped elevate me. and sort of like we all rose up in that moment to the challenge and achieved some really beautiful work that I'm extremely proud of, and I really can't wait to see that episode. Not just because I was happy with it, but I think it ended up. I remember hearing that it ended up being an episode that was sort of self-contained, and so probably there sort of maybe to fill a gap in the story arcs, kind of like a throwaway episode, contained, like it's one story that kind of happens in a single area, very intense, but doesn't really connect to what's going on in the rest of the season. And it ended up actually being one of our executive producers' favorite episodes in the whole season. So that was just incredibly rewarding for me. I mean, I loved the underwear volleyball scene in season 2. That was probably one of my favorite, just because like it actually was so cold out. Like, I'm not lying to you. It was so cold that day, but we had so much adrenaline and like sipping green tea just in the thing. And they would just like run us out onto the pitch. They're like, all right, 3, 2, 1, go, go, go. And we just go out there and just do the thing and had so much fun. Like, honestly, we didn't notice the cold for about, half an hour. And then it really set in. We were like, okay, thank God we got everything we need here. Let's move on.
I mean, what I love about this show as well is, as I mentioned a moment ago, the funny moments, the sort of situations that the SKYMED crew have got to deal with. And the last episode that aired in Canada, I've got to say, was I never saw that moment. It's I don't know if you've seen it, but it's 2 couples that they're in the hospital and they accidentally they've got glue. I don't know. I'm trying to like give you like hints. Yeah. So literally, you normally have got like, in the UK, we've got a show called Casualty where it always begins with someone up a tree with a chainsaw, and you know what's going to happen. But that episode, literally, it made me laugh out loud, and I thought, wow, that is shocking and amazing at the same time that they've gone that way. I mean, have you got a favorite funny moment? Because I will be reaching out to Julie that I would love, if there's a season 4, to be a victim of some sort. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God,
I
we'd
can
love
be
to have
there.
you.
Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I don't want to be naked because you've already had 2 naked people on this season. But
Yeah.
I would love to be a victim of some sort. But have you got a favorite, funny moment, either in front of the screen or behind the camera?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, look, okay, spoiler warning, but there's a paint fight in season 3, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had on television. Yeah. So that's all I can say. That's probably the funniest. That was probably the funniest moment in the whole 3 seasons of SKYMED. Yeah. I'll wait till that episode airs and everyone can kind of see what I'm talking about. But that was like such an incredible cathartic moment after 3 years of being together. It was great.
And will we see Tristan and Nowak work out? Because I've got to say, their relationship on camera is beautiful, and I mean that in the way that the writing's done. Their relationship is natural. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, 2 women, 2 men. It doesn't matter. The way that they've written it, literally, it's just beautiful to watch, and it's just a really nice sort of arc for the show. And I just want them to work out, because it frustrates me as a viewer, because they both obviously love each other, but both are absolutely useless at communicating. And they're always getting the wrong end of the stick. They're always making mistakes when they don't mean to make mistakes. But you, as an actor, as a person playing Nowak, I mean, would you like that relationship to last?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. Like, I love these characters so much, and I think it's evolved. I remember in season 2, I was thinking like, these guys should not be together. This is a train wreck on fire. Like, what? And then really, like, it's hard not to want them to work out, because I like Keon and I have really become brothers over the course of this. Like, we've had to do some pretty scary work together at times, some really emotional work together at times. And, just like the way he is so professional about, every single scene we have to do together, we always meet each other halfway, even though, some of it might be, stuff we've never, done before in acting. And therefore, therein lies the challenge. And then obviously the need and demand for authenticity these days, and diversity and authenticity therein is important. But again, like it's what you said, and it's what I think might be the reason why, I got this character in the first place. And partly why I think their love story is so great in this show is that, like, love is, like you said, it's universal, right? And so the reasons, so like what I look at when I look at, my girlfriend, the love of my life, and, I see all the qualities, I look into her eyes and I'm like, oh my God, that's, there's you can look into every single human being, and if you take the time to really look at them enough, there's something inside them or physically about them that you can see yourself falling in love with. And I think that can be said about every single person in this world, no matter who they are, or what, and we really have lost, I think, that, we're such a like instant gratification kind of culture nowadays that it's really scary even just to look someone in the eyes for a little bit too long, And so for Keon and I to kind of try and build this love story that is believable, I think, and, like my real thing is, I want people to believe it. I want people to not think that, oh, here are two guys just pretending, particularly if, they're not, if they're not sexually like in that lane, I guess, I suppose you could say. So there was a lot of fear going into it. But then what I realized too was that, love is a universal thing, and it's just about seeing something in someone else that you could fall in love with. Therein is like, that's all your imagination really needs. And so it really means a lot to hear you say that, it's a love story that you like and you find believable, because it was probably the most important thing about this whole job for me. I wasn't really worried about like, oh, are people going to get upset because I'm a straight guy playing a gay role? I think there's enough, arguments for and against, obviously the need for diversity and for people to fill those roles who've actually lived that is actually, that's a completely valid and fair point. And at the same time, I think it's about who brings the most to the story. Yeah. And, it's about being really like, rather than, my experience as a person, Thomas's experience as a person, it's about, can I look into that other person and fall in love with them? That's really what we want to see as an audience, and that's what's going to connect us and remind us about our own life and our own loved ones and our own relationships. So it was really important for me, at least, to find an authentic feeling of love in that character, even though he is like so guarded and has such a like ice wall up around him. That was season 1, big like Iceman. In season 2, that ice wall kind of melts and he falls in love. And then in season 3, it's like he's already in love. Now comes the hard parts, now comes the fighting and the working it out, even though, these guys have been together for, I guess a couple years now. So, it makes sense chronologically, even though things feel like they move so fast in SKYMED,
Well, hopefully they do work out, because that's the great thing about this show. They normalize things. So and it's how it should be. I want my daughters to watch shows like this and not anything pop out as like, this isn't right or this isn't normal. So that's why I like the show. It's normalized it. They're not just doing it for, I think someone did said a comment of gay bait, where certain shows do it because they want to cause a bit of a friction, but this is done beautifully. So obviously the cast, you've met them all in season 1 and season 2. Are you all as close knit now as you was before? Have you got a WhatsApp group that you're all chatting on? And is there certain people that are not on the WhatsApp group?
Yeah. I've actually become like really, really close friends with Ace Najuan and Braden Clark. I'm a gamer, I'm a geek, I like pop culture and nerd culture a lot. And, Braden and I, Jeremy and I play Tarkov with each other. You know what I mean? I've died fighting over that man's loot plenty of time, and I would do it again. So it was really.
I'm a gamer and I don't even know that game. All I play when I get the chance is DayZ. I don't know if you've played DayZ.
It's very similar.
Is it?
Or survival player versus player game. Yeah, Escape from Tarkov, DayZ. It's just got more bugs and cheaters. So really, DayZ's the way to go. You're perfectly fine. When they get private servers, it'll be the best game ever. But until then, that's amazing. Yeah, no. So I think it was really amazing getting to go and film in a place that was, I don't want to say remote, but it's like, we were filming season 3 about 5 hours north of Toronto. So it's like small town Canada. So there was really nothing other for us to do than like just work out together, become friends. And it really, I think, helped the chemistry in the show, or at least that's my belief. And it's led to some lifelong friends. I'm going to Mexico with Bodie and Jeremy in about a month. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Enjoy yourself in Mexico. Absolutely brilliant. You're going to go to the Chichen Itza, the pyramid, and you're going to go to like Riviera
in the
Maya
desert
and places
side.
like that? Hmm?
No Cancun. We're going to Cabo. So we're going to the desert side of Mexico. We're going to Cabo, doing a little bit of scuba, a little all inclusive, a little sunbathing, little surf and turf.
Yeah, be careful of the sharks.
Oh yeah,
and the things that can eat
they got to watch out for us. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I just wanted to just touch on a great film that I saw a little while ago, and I've got to say, just like SKYMED, it like literally brought me to tears. And I'm gonna get a picture off here and bring up the film that I want to talk about, which is this one. Just here, The Boys in the Boat. And I've got to say, what an amazing film this is. You know what? When it's about a true story, straight away I'm hooked, because there's so many great stories out there yet to be told. So amazing, inspirational stories. And this is one of them. And I was quite amazed that this hadn't been filmed before. So you play Chuck Day, and I've got a picture of Chuck Day, the real one, which is that man just there. There we go. Look at that. Like, it's like a mirror. So what was it like to actually step foot in Chuck Day's shoes and take part in this absolutely crazy adventure of this movie?
I mean, like, me rambling on about this could be another entire episode, so just honestly, but it was the best one. I dare say it was the best job of my life, but I wouldn't be unhappy with that statement, because for so many reasons, like, not only, did I, get hired to do a job where I got to travel to England and live in England, which is where my dad's from. So like, that was cool for my, side of the family. And, just getting paid basically to work out for 2 months straight and just get as like physically jacked as I possibly could was like probably the greatest experience of my life. Getting to be on a sports team with a group of lads, was incredible. Mainly because we were so scared at how difficult rowing was and 8-man crew rowing was. We were all buck novices. Like, when we started this thing, one of our guys had collegiate experience in England, but he was rowing on the wrong hand. He was used to a right-handed oar, and they gave him a left-handed oar. So he was basically learning to tie his shoes backwards. So he was, and we were all basically so terrified at how good these real life people were. Like, the more you kind of understand the sport and read the book and get to know, like, just what a feat of athleticism it was for those guys who were, in the middle of the American Depression, like eating strips of leather and, like beans out of a can, and then sleeping in the back of trucks. These guys built the Hoover Dam. Like, these are some of the toughest SOBs to ever walk the face of the earth. And our coaches let us know that from the moment we stepped forth into that shell house. Oh my God. I remember Terry O'Neill. He's this like, now East London, like Olympic, medalist, Olympic coach. The Terry O'Neill name will strike fear into anyone in the, British rowing community, I guarantee you. And he was like our godfather for the whole project. Like, maybe don't mention this to George Clooney, but by the end of the whole project, I was more afraid of letting our rowing coaches down and letting the rowing community down than I was of, George isn't going to be happy with my acting or something like that. Oh, I couldn't give a hoot. I knew my acting was going to be fine. I was so worried that we were going to look like imbeciles out on the water there and disgrace the entire rowing. Because really, rowing is one thing. Rowing together, I think Jack Malern said it best in one of the interviews. He said, it's like trying to teach 8 people how to drive a car and they're all sharing the same steering wheel, which is such a brilliant and accurate analogy as to how it feels. You know, you're all walking a tightrope, and if someone is off by like a couple millimeters, or their timing is behind by a couple seconds, your whole bodies, your whole hearts, your whole nervous systems need to just like link up and work in perfect synchronization. And that honestly takes time to figure out. Like, it really just takes nothing but time and practice. And, you know, when we would go to our coaches and be exhausted, we'd do like a 4K row, and then we'd be working out, and we would still suck. This was like a month and a half into training. We're thinking, we got to film this movie in like in like 6 weeks. What are we going to do? And the coaches just said, well, look, boys, you just don't have the experience to know how to solve these problems. And we thought, we are doomed. And through that dread and that challenge, we really just rose and became brothers. Like, and that's what you see that on the screen. Like, none of us are really acting there. We're like working our butts off to make this boat move, and the acting just sort of happens as a byproduct. And so that was a really special feeling too. And it kind of links back to what I was saying about like physical, like martial arts, and how that kind of helped me unlock myself as an actor. That was one of the best experiences on camera ever, because like we were so physically exhausted every second of that production, every second of that shoot. Because when we weren't filming like talking scenes, we were on the rivers anywhere, you know, training in like goose poop in the park, anywhere we could find a surface of water to get on, we were there rowing, you know. And so we were just so like physically fit and like tired and just focused that like the acting just kind of happened. And it was such an amazing experience, and kind of like, again, sort of is further evidence, I guess, to for me that, you know, physical training is really like my keyhole into this whole artistry. And it kind of, to me, kind of makes sense when you have people like Christoph Waltz, you know, the actor Christoph Waltz. He has a show, he has an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, where they do comedians in cars getting coffee. Sorry, I'm starting to ramble a bit. But he has a great thing where he tells Jerry Seinfeld that he doesn't think that acting is an artistic form so much as it is like a skill that you can learn. And so I didn't really understand what he meant until like all these physical things started falling into place, and like just the physical practice and the repetition of like a physical drill, physical exercise is what unlocks your imagination, your physicality, all these things. It really makes so much sense now. And I wish I'd known that back in university, but alas, here we are, you know?
And you were at your peak of your fitness, but I want to know about the protein farts, because you know, what was all that about? I saw you mention it on your Instagram, and I was thinking, is that a side effect of protein?
Oh, listen, man, we were eating I was probably snarfing like 4 grenade bars a day. We had
Really?
one of our poor like production assistants, and this is for like, you know, the 2 months where we're just doing nothing but working out and eating. Oh my God, dude. Like, you would not want to get all 9 of us in a small room. Let me just tell you that.
And light a match.
Yeah. There's some horrific side effects to trying to get as physically big as you possibly can in as little amount of time.
That's excellent. So two grenade bars, but not 4. I mean,
Did you say probably 1.5 a day.
Did you meet any of the real people that it was based on, or the family, should I say, of the family of? I mean, what was that like? Because that must be quite moving. Because it's one thing playing a character that's been written on paper, but then playing a character that you know that existed, so you're honoring them on their incredible story on screen that's going to be forever there for people to watch.
It was really cool. For me, at least, even discovering just what a legacy these people have left, even now, like the Seattle, you know, university rowing organization still very much carries that in their memory and in their legacy. And so do those families of those rowers. Like, you know, I've had people reach out to me on social media, say, "Oh, I'm related to. He was my great uncle, great grandfather." It's really cool. I didn't even know this story existed until this movie, until this project came up. So it was amazing for me to kind of learn that. And then obviously the pressure of like, wow, these guys are some of the most incredible athletes to ever walk the face of the earth. I really hope that I could do this justice. And also, learning too that like it wasn't a strictly biographical film. So obviously, like my character is sort of the bully. You know what I mean? It's a sports movie. There's certain archetypes that we have to fill. You know, there's like the nerdy guy, the overweight guy, whatever. You know, I was the jerk. I was the rich, you know, jerk, which is very much not like the real Chuck Day. So like that's definitely something to point out as well too. Like they're not like based on the books too. There's been some artistic liberties taken, and they say that at the beginning of the movie. But nevertheless, it was a really special feeling. You know, not only to be like, gosh, I hope I live up to this legacy, but how cool must it be to like see one of your ancestors, you know,
I know.
like immortalized ever on screen, and for it to be such a like heartwarming, uplifting movie from start to finish, like the way they handle the love story, the way they like just and this love story to the sport of rowing and the artistry in rowing, when you know they say this is beautiful passage at the beginning of the book, and you know the boat maker too, oh my god, his name is slipping me now, but Pocock, George Pocock says during the film, and that you know when people, you know, when those hearts and minds and bodies all synchronize in that moment, you know, rowing becomes poetry in motion. And you're like, oh my God, like that's the level that people are passionate about this sport in real life. And for me to kind of learn that and be like, wow, we're probably a part of the greatest rowing movie that's ever been shot, was just like, it was too much, honestly, at the time to even think about it. I was just like, hey, we're just going to do this. We're going to just physically make it as honest as I can be. And it was easy because I was just so dog tired every single day that, you know.
And the most beautiful scene is, for me, is when you win and you get that wreath and you put it over your head and then you pass it back to the next person. I just think it's absolutely incredible. But now what I want to know is, what have you stolen from set? Have you stolen anything from set? Have you kept anything? Any scripts, chairbacks, you know, anything? And you can say it because, you know, you earned it, I'm sure.
I'm such a good boy. I'm like, you know, I always sort of regret. I remember we did this, you know, I did a show called The Order for 2 seasons on Netflix. That was really what kind of like was my big, you know, like big step into the acting world. And then, there were just so many cool ancient artifacts, you know, Aleister Crowley-esque book of demonology, you know, type things like monkey's palm, you know, forbidden trinkets and magical artifacts. Like, I wish I'd taken something, you know, like a dagger or something, you know, like a crystal ball, or like they had all these like crazy, like shrunken heads and crap in them. It was amazing.
Well, you know what to do next time. Get a big duffel bag
Yeah.
and just fill it up. Do you know what I mean? Fill it up.
Yeah.
So what's next for you then? Because I saw something that you're producing your own project. Is that something you can talk about it, or is it still under wraps?
Yeah. I mean, I can't really say what it's about, but I've been training like martial arts and stunt fighting for camera, which has sort of led into a lot of like firearms training and a little bit of knife training. And really, you know, I've been playing like a lot of sort of like soft, kind of gentle or sort of really reserved characters for a long time. And I've really been like a tall, skinny guy for a long time. And, you know, me kind of getting more in shape and, you know, then landing the Job Boys in the boat and getting to feel what it's like to do like a truly physical role. That was such a cool experience for me. I've really kind of doubled down on all my training, and I've invested into producing and acting in like what is hopefully going to be like an action feature film that I am collaborating on with two of my dearest friends. Who's a writer director, and then we've got our videographer as our cinematographer DP, and the three of us are kind of like the three amigos. We've got this really fun idea for like a twist on the modern day blood sport, and it's something where I've been able to use like all my shooting skills that I've been practicing, a lot of my fighting, and a lot of, let's be honest, my running and falling, because I do a lot of tripping and running and falling in this. But nevertheless, it was cool to just sort of learn how to produce something, go through all those like hurdles of logistics, get to sort of use some money that I've made through acting to kind of pay for stuff, hire some professional crew, and just to work with some of my dearest, oldest friends in this business was just such an amazing experience. I've never sold a movie before. I'm kind of leaving that to, my other my other two better halves, but hopefully, it's like the Keanu Reeves story. Before he got the Matrix, he was training. Before John Wick, he was training. And so I don't want to be one of those actors who's sort of thinking like, oh, when I land the role, then I'll learn how to shoot and fight and, getting beaten up and beat up and fall through windows. Like, I believe you sort of have to walk the walk, especially in the stunt world, because those guys are really tough.
Oh, do you know what?
Um,
Keanu Reeves, I had on the show a guy called Stephen Dunleavy, who is the stunt coordinator for all the John Wick movies. And he said that Keanu Reeves in, I think it's John Wick 4, where he takes the car around the Champs-Élysées and he picks up the gun. He actually did that for real. So he actually drifted the car. But will you be doing all your own stunts, or are you good?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah. I had to have a real talk with our stunt coordinator. He was like, listen, man, this is a pretty steep cliff. You're going to bomb it down. Okay. Even one of my guys had to be like, hey, I don't know. And I said, look, man, like, I'm paying for this thing. I'm the guy whose name is on the insurance. So are you. So it's both of our asses on the line. So trust me when I can say I can fall down this cliff, basically. And that was it. It's kind of one of those like Hollywood moments where it's just like, yeah, listen, man, like, I'm, don't worry about me because I won't be complaining about anything. I'm here to, kind of as much as I can, do it myself,
Well,
I don't love falling down.
Count me in, because I love a good action movie. Bloodsport for me was one of the films that I watched when I was growing up. Best of the Best was another,
Oh yeah.
franchise of films.
Oh, yeah.
And I cannot wait. So we do a challenge each episode on who we should get on the show next from the SKYMED cast. So we've already had Mercedes, we've already had Aaron, and we've had yourself finally. Who do you think should come on to Be More Super next to talk about SKYMED?
I think you got to get Morgan Holmstrom or Braden Clark. Braden Clark is going to be more like if you're going for the achievement, it's like more of a personal challenge. Like I can like, I couldn't even, that guy's off the grid, I couldn't even geolocate him if I had him on a, like some kind of satellite. But you should also get Morgan, I think, because it was such an emotional experience, emotional season for her doing SKYMED season 3. Like she had to contain so much inside herself and just sort of let the pot, simmer just a little bit without taking the lid off and letting it overflow, because there was just so much grief and emotion and joy for her in that season. She really, I think, like for me, I was like, I don't think I would have had the endurance to be able to do a performance like that lasted for 9 episodes, where you had to just like contain all that, every single scene, and almost never let your foot off the gas. It was really cool. I'm sure she would have some amazing things to share.
And I've got to say, season 3, everyone has definitely upped their game. Literally, the acting skills is just incredible. I mean, when you talk about emotion and I don't know if it's the writing, if it's a performance, or both. I just think that this show, especially when there's so many shows out there, we're flooded. We are flooded by content. And SKYMED is definitely one of the shows that everyone needs to watch, because it's just full of everything that makes a show perfect, from the cast to the story to the location, which is absolutely beautiful. But I'm not going there because there's too many dangerous things, according to Aaron. Like big bears. So anyone watching this that hasn't watched SKYMED, check it out. Honestly, you will not be disappointed. It's on Paramount Plus at the moment, the previous seasons, and then season 3 currently in Canada, and will be coming to Paramount. But Thomas, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Don't go anywhere. I'll say goodbye properly in a second after we end the stream. But thank you everyone for watching. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time because I'm away next week on holiday. So look after yourselves. Keep safe. Yeah, exactly. Right, I'm ending the stream. Thank you very much. See you in 2 weeks.